Bright Tuty. Every student matters.
Hello dear students, welcome to another lecture. So we are reading the diary of Anne Frank. We have been reading about the problems that they were going through, problem which indeed is a very small word when we compare to the kind of situation and circumstances that these people are surrounded with all the time. Now, in the last video, I had told you about the regular bombing raids that they, that had become a regular place now in their neighborhood. And not only we are talking about them, but the entire country on the whole was suffering a lot. So she told us, Anne Frank told us about her urge to have a friend with whom she could talk to and with whom she could share her feelings with. She looked up to, Mr. Van Daan's son for the same, but obviously she was not very much interested in him and she only thought of him as a friend. Now we today are going to begin from the 12th of January 1944. So she tells us that I have a craze for dancing and ballet at the moment and dance steps every day. I've made a dance costume out of a dress belonging to mother. I tried to turn my tennis shoes into ballet slippers but with no success. Now, with the exercise, my body does not feel so stiff anymore. So, the reason why this word stiff has been used, if you people remember, I had told you that because of this regular commotion which was there around them, these people were told to restrict their movement in every sense, to go to the washrooms, to walk from one place to the other, to talk, to run, everything was restricted. And therefore, they had commented that their bodies had become so stiff that it was difficult for them even to move their necks. So here on the 12th of January, Anne Frank writes that she developed a craze, an excitement for dancing and ballet. We know that ballet is also a dance form. So she had developed a craze, she had developed a deep interest for dancing and for ballet. And she was practicing dance steps every day now. She made a dance costume for herself using one of her mother's dresses. She also tried to make the ballet shoes, the ballet slippers, using her tennis shoes, but with no success. That did not help her much. Now she tells us that because she's been practicing and exercising every day, her body did not feel that stiff. That stiffness in her body was getting relaxed. 15 January Saturday. I am not going to describe all our quarrels down to the last detail, but we are sharing food differently now. Each family has their own stores of meats and oils and cooks their own potatoes. Mother has made a wish which is not likely to come true anytime soon, to not have to see Mr. Van Daan's face for 2 whole weeks. I wonder if everyone who shares a house ends up fighting like this, or is it just that we are unlucky? So 15th of January, Anne tells us that there were a few quarrels that were taking place in the house, quarrels, fights. So she tells us that she is not going to explain to us all these fights in detail. So she is not going to do that. But she's given us the conclusion of that fight, the result of that fight. And the result was that they had decided that they were going to share their food differently. The Van Daans are going to make food for themselves, 3 of them. And the Franks are going to make food for themselves. Each family, so the Van Daans as well as the Franks, had their own division, has their own storage of meat, oil and they were cooking their own potatoes. So whatever was to be cooked, each one of them will do it themselves. She tells us that her mother had made a wish which will not come true at any cost. And what was that wish? She does not want to see Mr. Van Dan's face for at least 2 weeks. Now that was not possible because they were living in the same house, so not seeing the face of Mr. Van Dan was simply not possible. Anne Frank says that I'm just thinking if all the people who live together in the same house, if this is the scenario with everyone who shares the house, or are we the special ones, since our destiny, our fate is playing such a cruel game with us. So she says that are we unlucky or this happens with everyone? Now Thursday, 3rd February 1944. So everyone in the country is talking about the Allied invasion. Reports say that the Germans will let water from the sea into the country and flood it. In case Allied forces do invade Holland, what do we do if this happens? Everybody had a response to this tricky question. Now we've been told about the efforts which were being made by the Allied forces, that is the countries that were fighting with or rather against the Nazis, Germany. So people were discussing about the fact that those countries were planning to invade, were planning to attack this country anytime soon. Reports say that Germans, what is going on in their minds? They are planning to let the water from the sea into the country. So, water from the sea into the country, obviously it has been told to us in the footnote that Holland is very flat. Okay, so the surface of Holland, it is very flat and water is very much controlled there. Because if something which is flat, what happens if you imagine a space or if you imagine a surface which is tilted? The water cannot stand and it is going to fall down, it is going to drop down. But for a surface which is flat, the water is going to be stagnant on it. Okay. So Holland was flat and therefore it was feared that if the water will come in Holland, there is no way for water to go out from it. And so what will happen? There is going to be flood in Holland. Now Anne tells us that we all were thinking that what we are going to do if this happens. Everybody had a response, everybody had an answer to this tricky question. Okay, we'll have to walk through the water. So one of them said that we will have to walk through the water. We are going to walk on the water. The other person says, don't be silly. We'll have to try and swim. We'll all put on our bathing suits and swim underwater. So nobody can see we are Jews. So the other person responded to it by saying that don't be stupid. We will have to try and swim. We will put on our bathing suits and we are going to swim underwater so that nobody sees us and nobody knows that we are Jews. Another person says, oh please, will the ladies swim with rats biting their legs? That was a man, of course. We'll see who screams loudest. So this is something that Anne has written to add humor to her writing. We've seen that there are multiple places in this diary that she's written where she's added an element of humor and a fun element to her piece of writing. So there was a man, obviously we are assuming that this comment was passed by a man because the speaker had said that will the ladies swim when there are rats which are biting their legs? There are going to be rats also in the water, not only the humans. So they commented that are the ladies going to swim with the rats in the water as well? And Anne said that we will see who screams the loudest. So when this was spoken, she just commented by saying that whether a man is going to scream at it or a woman is going to scream at it. The second question about the invasion. What should we do if the Germans make everybody leave Amsterdam? Now this was the second question. Everybody was curious to know what will happen if Germans make everybody leave Amsterdam. If Germans are going to vacate Amsterdam, then what will happen? Leave the city along with the others, disguise ourselves as well as we can. So one of the person to this commented that if we are going to leave the city along with the others, if you want that you also should leave the city with the other people, you need to disguise yourself. Disguise, you need to change yourself, you need to change your appearance, your personality in such a way that you are confused to be a non-Jew person, because if you are a Jew, you will not be made to live anywhere. So you will have to change your appearance in such a way that people think you are a non-Jew. Whatever happens, don't go outside. The Germans will send everybody to Germany where we will all die. So they said that whatever happens, there was another person who added his opinion by saying that whatever happens, we are not supposed to go outside our houses because the Germans are going to send us to Germany and there we will all die. Okay. Of course, we'll stay here. This is the safest place. Let's ask Meep and Koophuis to bring some extra blankets just in case. And we'll order some extra food supplies. At the moment, we've got about 65 pounds of beans and 10 pounds of split peas. And don't forget the 50 cans of vegetables. So, when this was said that we have to be inside the house, we have to be inside the secret annex. So, the other person replied that of course we are going to be inside the secret annex only because this is the safest place. And then that person said that we will request Meep and Koophuis to bring us some extra blankets if in case we are stuck inside the house without anything. So we'll ask them to bring us extra blankets. We'll order some extra food because right now, as they had given the status, they had 65 pounds of bean and 10 pounds of peas. And in addition to it, they had 50 cans of vegetables. What about the rest, mother? Give us the latest figures. So, obviously, about the mother, since the word mother is used here, so obviously we can assume that either Anne or her sister Margaret were asking this from their mother, Mrs. Anne Frank, that what about the other things? Do we only have beans and peas and vegetables? What about the other things? Tell us about that also that we have in stock. So she completed that by saying, we have 10 cans of fish, 40 cans of milk, 3 bottles of oil, 4 jars of meat, 20 jars of tomatoes, 9 pounds of rice. That's it. Let's all make little bags for our money so we can hide them in our clothes if we need to leave here. So somebody suggested that whatever money they had, they are going to divide it. They are going to keep it in small bags and will hide that in between their clothes so that if they are supposed to leave the secret annex, they should have money with themselves. Obviously, they cannot carry all the food related things, the food supplies. So money is something that can easily be carried. And on they go. All day long, that's all I hear. Invasion. Nothing but invasion. I'm very calm. I've reached the point where I hardly care whether I live or die. The world will keep on turning without me, and I can't do anything to change events anyway. I'll just concentrate on studying and hope that everything will be all right in the end. So, she says that on and on. So, the entire day they just continue to talk about the same thing. Invasion, invasion, invasion. This is the only topic that was taking place in their house, in that secret annex among themselves. And says that I'm very calm. I am not saying anything. I am not reacting to anything. She tells us a very important and a very sensitive remark has been made by her, that I have reached the point where I hardly care whether I live or die. So she was so carefree now that it did not matter to her whether she was alive or she would die. The world, she says, will keep on turning without me. Whether I am here or I am dead, it will not affect the world at all. And I cannot do anything to change what is happening. So I cannot do anything about the current situation. The current situation is not going to change if I am not here. So there's no need for me to feel happy, scared or whatsoever. I'll just concentrate on studying, she decided, and she was just hopeful of the fact that things are going to be okay in the end. Now, 16th February 1944. Today I went up to get some potatoes from the attic for mother. I had to go through Peter's room. When I was going up the stairs, he took my arm and tried to stop me. I'll go, he said. I replied that it was not really necessary. On my way back down, I asked him what he was working on. French, he replied. I asked if I could take a look at his lessons. Then I went to wash my hands and sat down across from him on the divan. And I'd explained some French to him. We began to talk about lots of things. So, today she tells us, that is the 16th of February, she climbed the stairs because we had read on the very first day when I had described you their secret annex that climbing the stairs they would reach an area where there was a kitchen, there was Peter's room and an attic. So she climbed the stairs to go to the attic so that she could get some potatoes from there. Now, when she was going up the stairs, he took my arm and tried to stop me. So, he took my arm and tried to stop me. So, he was just trying to stop Anne from climbing up the stairs and go to the attic. But then he said, I will go. That wait, I will go, then you can come to the attic and take whatever you want. And told her, Peter, that it was not necessary, that she really did not have a problem with the fact that Peter was still there. So even if Peter was there, she can easily go to the attic and take whatever she needs. When she was coming down the stairs, she asked Peter what he was studying, what subject was he working on, and Peter told her that he was he was working on French, and asked him if she could just take a look at his lessons, what he was studying. Then Anne went, she washed her hands, came down to Peter's room and sat down across from him on the divan. Across, so in front of him on the divan. After that, she explained some French lessons to Peter and they began to talk about a lot of things. That evening, he said something I thought was nice. We were talking about the picture of a movie star I'd once given him, which has been hanging in his room for at least a year and a half. He liked it so much that I offered to give him a few more. No, he replied. I'd rather keep the one I have got. I'd look at it every day and the people in it have become my friends. I now understand why Peter always hugs Moshi, the cat, so tightly. He obviously needs affection too. So, that evening, Peter said something to Anne which she really thought was nice. Now there was a picture which was hanging in Peter's room. It was of a movie star. So the picture of a movie star was hanging on the wall of Peter's room. And this picture was given by Anne to Peter. And it has been over an year now, 1.5 years they have been living in the secret annex, and the same time had passed when that picture was hung on the wall of his room. So Peter told her that he liked it very much. Now when he said that I like it a lot, and asked him, whether you want more, and he replied no. He said that I am happy with that one single picture I have got. I like this picture so much that the other people who are there in this picture, they have all become my friends. So since he looks at that picture so often, almost the entire day, that he feels all the people in that picture were his friends. Now, Anne Frank understood the reason why he would hug Moshi, their cat, the common cat that they had in the house, why he would hug Moshi so tight. She understood that even Peter was alone, even he needed affection, he also needed love. Friday, February 18, 1944. Whenever I go upstairs, it's always so I can see him. Now that I have something to look forward to, my life here has improved greatly. Mother does not like me going upstairs. She says I should leave him alone. She always looks at me so oddly when I go to Peter's room. When I come down again, she asks me where I have been. So February 18, Anne Frank tells us that whenever she goes upstairs to Peter's room, or to the attic for that matter, she always hopes that she would see Peter also. She had something to look forward to. Now, what was she looking forward to? To meeting Peter. She had started liking him and she wanted to meet him and was looking for excuses to see him. And now that she had a purpose or a reason that she was looking forward to, she felt that her life had improved. It had become better. Her mother, on the other hand, did not like it when she would go upstairs to, meet Peter and everything. And she would always keep on telling her to leave Peter alone, not to meet him. And whenever she would climb and go upstairs, she would look very oddly, very strangely at Anne Frank. And after she would come down, though she knew she's returning from Peter's room, she would still ask her where she was. Wednesday, 23rd February 1944. So the weather has been wonderful since yesterday and I'm feeling so much better. I go to the attic almost every morning to get some fresh air. This morning when I went there, Peter was there too. The two of us sat on the floor and looked out at the blue sky, the trees and the birds. It was so beautiful that we could not speak. I was thinking, as long as the sky and the sunshine exist and as long as I can enjoy it, how can I be sad? Now again, a very beautiful thing spoken by Anne Frank. Now she first tells us about 23rd of February. She says that since yesterday, that is since the previous day, the weather had been very wonderful, it had been very pleasant and she was feeling very good, she was feeling better. She would go to the attic every morning so that she could get some fresh air. And this morning, that is the 23rd of February, when she went upstairs, Peter was there as well. Now both Peter and Anne Frank, they sat on the floor and they looked out at the blue sky. So they were looking at the blue sky, they were looking at the birds they could see flying in the air. And it was so beautiful, Anne says, that I don't know what to say. Both of us were just looking at that sky, we were looking at the birds, and we did not say anything. She was just thinking that how can I be sad? I have the sky, I have the sunshine, and as long as they are beautiful, as long as according to her the sunshine and the sky exist, as long as they were able to enjoy it, they did not have any reason to be sad or to complain. The best remedy for those who are frightened, lonely, or unhappy is to go outside, somewhere they can be alone with nature. God wants us to be happy and enjoy the beauty of nature. I firmly believe that it can help us with all our troubles. So Anne Frank tells us that, she basically had a piece of advice for everybody there. She said that it was the best remedy solution. So the best solution she had for those people who were scared, frightened is scared, who felt lonely or who felt unhappy about anything. So when there is something or somebody like this, Anne Frank suggested that such a person should go out of the house and should go to a place in which they are in close contact with nature. So, they can observe nature and they can live within the nature. And she says that it is then when you will realize that God wants us to be happy. God wants us to enjoy the beauty of nature. And she said, I firmly believe. So according to Anne Frank, she believed in this fact very, very strongly, that this ways you can actually learn to fight your troubles. What way? By keeping this positive, thought in your mind, that you cannot be sad as long as the sky is there, the sun is there, the birds are there. So as long as the nature has some beauty to offer to us, we should not be sad. Now, Sunday, the 27th of February, 1944. Day and night, all I do is think about Peter. I dream about him and wake up thinking about him. I have a strong feeling that he and I are not really that different as we seem to be on the outside. Both he and I have very strong feelings that cannot be controlled. Neither of us has a mother. His does not bother much about what goes on his head. Mine takes an interest in my life but does not understand me at all. So 27th of February, Anne Frank confessed that she would just think about Peter all day and night. She told us that she would dream about him. She would wake up thinking about him. And she also said that she had a very strong feeling that he and Anne Frank, they were not very different as they seemed to be on the outside. So, obviously, when you live with somebody, you understand that person better. So, he understood that and she also understood that. They both had very strong feelings for each other that none of them could control. She also says that neither of them had a mother. Obviously, their mothers were alive, but they did not have a very good connect with their mothers. She tells us that Peter's mother does not bother, she does not pay any heed, she does not pay any attention to what is going on in his mind. On the other hand, Anne Frank tells us about her mother, who does not understand her at all. So, both of them had mothers, but they were not very closely connected with their mothers. Now, 4th of March, Saturday, 1944. So, this is the first Saturday in months that has not been boring. The reason is Peter. I joined him and father for their French lesson. and I was in heaven because I was sitting on father's chair so close to Peter. Afterwards, we talked for so long. You have no idea how good it is to talk to him. Whenever I leave the room and no one else can hear, he says, "Bye, Anne, see you later." I am so happy. I wonder if he is in love with me. So Anne Frank tells us about the 4th of March, which was a Saturday. And she said that in months, or rather in the couple of years, almost the 1.5 year that they've spent inside the secret annex, this was the best Saturday because she was not bored. Why wasn't she bored? Because of Peter. She said that she joined him and her father for their French lesson, and she was very happy because she was sitting on her father's chair and Peter was sitting next to him, and they had a very long conversation. She said that you do not know how good he is to talk to, and she also says that whenever she would leave the room, whenever Anne would leave the room, and when there is nobody around them, he would actually say to Anne, "Bye, Anne, see you later." So, see you later, he wanted to meet Anne. Just as much as Anne wanted to meet Peter, even Peter wanted to meet him. So, Anne confessed again. She exclaimed, "I am so happy." And she was wondering, she was thinking if Peter was in love with her. So my dear students, I'm going to pause here at the 4th of March 1944 when Anne Frank believed and she thought that probably Peter was in love with her. Whether he was or not, we are going to continue to read in our next lectures. So I'll see you all now in my next video. Thank you.